Everyone, and welcome to the final session of this afternoon, at last, but hopefully not least. We certainly have a big panel from the worlds of policy, innovation, politics, and research, and hopefully we'll bring these groups of quite disparate people together to tell us about their views on European Security Council, European security strategy. And to introduce that proposal, we're lucky to have Peter Hefele from the Wilfried Martens Centre, who's written an extensive proposal with colleagues on this subject. And in the spirit of Jan, I will call upon panelists to introduce themselves when we come to them afterwards. Thank you.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for your kind words of introduction. Francesca, thank you so much for this lovely, inspiring event, which I had the pleasure to attend for the third time, if I'm not counting quite wrong. Well, it might not be the fancy topic as we had in our last session on AI. This is difficult to compete, I would say, but nonetheless, I think it's very important because, yes, we cannot leave out constitutional issues, decision-making processes, because at the very end, it boils down to policy procedures, models, innovations. So I'm very happy to speak about a topic which had been a rather academic proposal. If you look back 2-3 years ago, it was a niche issue, but now it's very much in the center of the European debate in Brussels as well as in national capitals. That's the issue, how we can reform the way we discuss in Europe, because apparently there's a big gap between what we need, in which geopolitical environment we are thrown in to a certain extent, and how our institutions can react to that. Well, we have several times alluded that the environment in which the European Union is operating has dramatically changed, mainly in security-related issues, you know, all the crisis, the Ukraine war, geopolitical competition, a permanent threat of our democratic societies by hybrid attacks. So the setting is quite clear. But apparently, it's not quite clear how we should react institutionally and also in policy procedures. And the last session here is about, again, and the topic, Francesca, we had discussed over many years, it's the policy design, the institutional reform, that I think is the very core of our debate. So the question I and we in our center have put up, is the current institutional setting apt to this? Is it come to ages, and has it a heritage on her shoulders which we should omit and go into a new era of design? And let me start with a paradox, I would say, and Europe is full of paradoxes, I must acknowledge. Never in the lifetime of the European Union we had so many instruments, so many tools, so many ideas at hand. But apparently this is not enough, because as many instruments you might possess, the English, you are struggling to operationalize them, to act strategically, to act rapidly, and to act coherently. Don't get me wrong, capacities are needed, and I'm the last to acknowledge, we built up and had a tremendous success over the last years. But apparently, capabilities is not enough. Capabilities require institutions, they require leadership, and they require mechanisms in politics to transform these capabilities into action. And that is at the very core of the question, the starting point we put up. And one of the starting points, very concrete ideas here, is to create a kind of European Security Council. Again, we have already developed a considerable weight, militarily, economically, politically. We should not put our weight, by the way, under the table, as we say in German. There's a lot of weight already out there, but it's not really visible because we are not able to translate, again, it into a manageable and a visible and an actionable form of policy. Strategic focus to be able to continuously work on something issues and not only jump from one crisis to the other. This is normally the mode we are now, the usual mode we are in. Don't get me again wrong. I'm not talking about replacing existing institutions. NATO is fine. It is irreplaceable. We have other mechanisms to coordinate, but apparently this is not enough because there's one piece missing, and this piece is a coordinated structure, a council, as we call it, who can really act in bringing ideas together, but also reflecting and creating a momentum which we apparently in the existing constitutions, may be the council or the ministers' meetings, has not. The thing in democracies is a bit of again, a tricky thing. You know, democracies have three objectives if you put it a bit on an abstract level. It's one thing to create legitimacy. We are democracies, so we have to get our people, our voters behind us. Otherwise, we can go to the Chinese model, which I do not really recommend, having lived 10 years in China. The next thing is inclusive. Yes, Europe is incredibly diverse, but so we have to be. We cannot leave others, and we do not want to have a second-class Europeans or citizens. This is not the way we are acting. But on the other side, it's effectively. We spoke in the last session about output legitimacy. This is a major issue. We have to deliver at the same time. Apparently, these three objectives are not always coherent, and it's difficult to balance, and you hardly achieve. We have talked in the morning about energy, the energy triangle. This is exactly the same structural problem. You will hardly be able to fulfill all the three things and to rebalance it. This is a constant challenge in politics at all, but this is not an excuse not to try and to improve definitely a bit more. So these are the imperatives, and I would like to put it a bit more practical, otherwise remain again in a very abstract theoretical issue. First, the thing with the Council is it is a dedicated space for security discussions. We do not want to overload it with other issues. There exist other topics and other formats which are pretty fine, and effectively they should remain. But from a strategic point of view, we need something else which really brings together those forces which are the decisive one. And it should not be established only in times of crisis. This is the mode I mentioned before, that one is the crisis, we jump together and find some quick solutions. We have seen it in COVID, we have seen it in the Russian war. Slowly, we are evolving in a bit different mode. The challenge here is who should be part of that issue. It should not be too big, otherwise it's not really functioning. Then we have the same situation as we now have with 27 member states, and it takes, unfortunately, a bit too long. But we cannot, on the other side, exclude a lot of things. Then they will ask, oh, this is a kind of directorate upon the European member states. This is not the way we are talking about democratic inclusion. So this needs a combination of a permanent, hardcore group of member states, probably the larger ones, and a rotating one of the smaller ones. The third issue is it should be also, of course, quite reactively, that we do not follow always the calendar, the agenda, because the agenda is set not by us Europeans, they are set by other forces around us. So there must be a permanent structure which is quickly able to react. It is about consultation, definitely, and it is about coordination. So again, I do not want to replace, we propose not to replace NATO or other institutions, but apparently there's a missing link which coordinates more on a political level. And that's what we set up. That means about priorities, about coherence. But you might be asking, is it really needed? Do we not already have a lot of institutions in Brussels, maybe too much, kind of the problem currently? So does it really, and this is some questions I would like to put indeed to the panel, because you're experts and this is the very purpose of this meeting, to critically reflect on our proposal. Is it really improving our decision-making processes? Does it really strengthening our strategic coherence? Or does it rather add another layer of complexity in an already very complicated environment? Is it really a valid edu which we can create? These are difficult questions, and we, for that reason, put them on the table, because we, for too long, have remained in a very vague ideas what Europe should be, how it should evolve. Now, whether it's accepted or not, this is not our issue, but I want to put this issue very concretely to the debate, because otherwise there is no progress, and as fancy it might look in the moment, we have seen a lot of ideas which we thought are impossible to think maybe 2 or 3 years ago. This is not the issue. This is about innovative ideas and throwing them into the bigger debate about Europe's future. So with that, I would like to close my introduction. Again, it's a discussion. It's an open issue. I'm more than happy, and it's a perfect place, I think, to think free out of the box. What will then the big ghost in Brussels decide is not up to us, but at least we should have some ideas on that issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that thoughtful introduction. I wonder if I might pick up on a point that you made about not wanting it to be a purely theoretical discussion and to think about practical implications. And I wonder if I might, Nazar, put you on the spot and come to you first to ask a little bit about what you do and what it is that you need from Europe and potentially a European Security Council.
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the platform that we can share our experience and our thoughts. And thank you for Ukraine to become part of it. So thank you very much. In terms of practical implementation or our experience, so let me just give you a few examples so you understand how crucial the time is, because I don't think that European Union has a gap of resources, or it's rather the gap of time and to how to efficiently use it. So what we built, like let's say in March, can become obsolete in April. So we need to fix and to provide the new solution in May. The second example is that our fastest feedback loop from the battlefield, from the moment the feature was implemented till the moment we first time used it on the battlefield, it took us 28 minutes. So you can just imagine how quick is the pace and how crucial the time is. So speaking about the time gap, you must understand that it's not the matter of when you deliver something to the battlefield, it's the matter of when you deliver, will it still work there, will it make sense at all? So speaking of the idea of this council, I want to say that I would suggest that you take one particular problem. We can take, for example, enemies' UAVs, and you all know who I mean by the enemy, flying over European airports when you need to close your space and cancel or delay your flights. And you try to solve it not by taking 27 countries to the room and taking decision, and a possible outcome of the meeting might be the date of the next meeting. But you try to solve this problem from the months to weeks. And you prove that this new organization is efficient enough that it can solve one particular problem, and it can protect your sky when you need it. And in case it works, you extend it, you added more capabilities. In case it doesn't work, you prove it quickly and you adjust or you cancel it. So my suggestion is try to solve one particular problem and try to solve it fast, and then prove that organization can be efficient. That's my take.
Thanks very much, Nazar. And you're very much at the forefront of the development of a new kind of technology. I'd be interested to hear as well from Massimo, particularly on how industry views European defense procurement, and could an organization such as this European Security Council improve do we not have Massimo Comparrini here from Leonardo? Okay. Do we have anyone from Leonardo? Okay. Okay. My apologies. I was keen to hear views from industry, established industry, about how to respond to a quite fragmented defense space and defense policy space. But maybe that's something any of the other panelists, perhaps in academia or in policymaking, might like to comment on. Would anyone like to volunteer to speak on that?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. My name is Anna Molnár, and I am from Budapest, from the Ludovika University of Public Service. And just a few days ago, it was Andreas Kubilus who said, who was talking about the launch of this European Security Council. And in that, I think it was a conference where they were talking about it. And he said that the main goal would be the creation or planning this European Defense Union. And this idea was first mentioned during the preparations for the Constitutional Treaty at the beginning of 2000s. And then it came back in 2017 by the Commission to create it until by 2025. Now we are in 2026. There are some elements of this European Defense Union, many different pillars. Those are also intergovernmental, some of them mainly. For example, the CARD, the Coordinated Annual Review on Defense, or for example, the MPCC, Military Planning and Conduct Capability, and so on. But still, we don't have the definition what would be this defense union. Clear definition we don't have. So it seems that the main task of this would be also to plan and to draft also the new security strategy of the European Union, which is also needed, and also the defense union, which could be a strategic framework for stronger integration in the field of defense. It also, what is interesting, because they are talking about the E5, which includes also UK, because that would bridge the gap between the coalition of willing and also between the permanent institutions of the European Union. But there are several initiatives to create this Security Council. For example, there was another one by Natalie Tocci, and there was another one by the Green Party as well. So there are different initiatives. One of them is based on the treaties, others are outside the treaties. Some of them are mainly related to the member states, others are including non-EU member states. There is also this 3 nots, not the entire EU, which means that 10, 12, 15 countries with permanent and not permanent members, and also not only the EU, which means that maybe also Ukraine, and also Kubilus talk about Ukraine, Norway, and UK as well. And they also mentioned also Turkey and Canada, which would be interesting. For example, Turkey for Cyprus, because part of Cyprus is occupied. So it's there are many questions regarding the future of this Security Council and how to build it, how to create it, because also it is important what will be the opinion of the smaller member states, because it shouldn't be an exclusive club of the biggest. That is also important for the smaller one, and also how to avoid the trap of unanimity. That is why they are talking about the use of constructive abstention, which is also in the CFSP. It is used by the CFSP as well. It's under Article 31 of the treaty, so it can be an option. But I think it's very interesting and important idea, but there are many questions regarding how to launch it and how to realize it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yevhen, I believe you also join us from Ukraine this week. I wonder if you'd like to reflect on this idea of an expanded group with the UK, Norway, Ukraine, playing an active role in the European policy-making framework, but also specifically, how could that help the very specific challenge that your country faces at the moment? And I wonder again if I could just remind everyone just to make a brief introduction as you speak.
Yes, thank you for this question. My name is Yevhen Popov. I'm a head of strategic partnership at Osavul. Osavul is a tech company which develop AI for security, intelligence, and civic use. So we are dual use technology. In the case of your question, I want to say that probably I'm not the right person to ask the global things, and the answer it's very complicated, but I hope that in general the alliance of US and Europe will remain steady, at least in the component of nuclear protection. It's I think it's the most valuable part of that. Then any other thing is solvable to some extent. So it's the finances, but the nuclear power is if we're facing Russia, it's a big challenge, and unfortunately or fortunately US have the capacity to bring something on the table in this discussion. But in any other components, I think I'm absolutely agree from the Nazar perspective that the speed matters right now in the modern challenge of the war. The speed is one of the most important part of that, and unfortunately here we can say that Europe is not ready in general. So I'm again it's not 100% true, but to some extent it's the procurement side and procedure side and policy side is very slow. So the technology on the battlefield is changing tremendously. It's changing on every 2 to 6 months, and the procurement side should be I don't know, or faster, or it should be organized in different way, or it should be come from the nation itself as it's working with Ukraine right now more effectively than with global institution, or they have a different layers of their support and so on. So the policy decision there is sure needed. But from the perspective of technology company, I want to say that AI and technological capacity develop also tremendously, and the focus on it should be also from Europe remain steady or even come bigger, just because we can observe that, for example, we at the very beginning of the stage, but we already can predict several attacks which could happen or which already happened in EU from different harmful actors, and it was done truly by methodological approach that we have, and AI technology again that we develop. And from that perspective, I guess it's already important to invest in such sphere just to protect whatever should be protected. The other important question here is what actually should be protected. So this probably a more global question here. So what exactly Europe is protecting, or what is standing for? But in general, for the perspective of modern war, we can definitely observe that we need fast, cheap technologies. They're changing very fast in the terms of again procurement side or political side or whatever. So this discussion, the political discussion or the political statements which going to the media, it's absolutely not relevant. Whatever side is proclaiming them, absolutely not relevant to the battlefield itself. Just because it's absolutely different reality. But from the protection side, the technology allow to understand what the threats are, how they will appear, where they will appear, who stands behind them, and so on, so on. So basically, it's very beginning of the stage right now, but in the future, I guess it will be the like more protective things to work with. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So for you, speed is clearly of the essence, and the battlefield's driving the pace of change. And it's almost a case that policymakers have to react to that. I wonder if I could take this down to the other end of the panel and invite further reflections, both on the document, on the proposal, but also on some of the voices that we've heard so far.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to the Martens Center for the proposal. I think it's exactly the kind of debate.
Sorry, can you do a quick introduction, by the way, of yourself?
Yes, I'm Giorgio Gori. I'm a European deputy for the Socialist Group. I've been the mayor of Bergamo for 10 years before this experience. And I was supposed to discuss this morning about energy, but because I was late, I've been moved to the afternoon discussing about defense. And but I'll try to say something about the Martens Center proposal. 2030 with safe 150 billion raised through common borrowing, and EDIP, the program that supports joint procurement, common programs, and European value chains. But material readiness is not enough. What Europe still lacks is political and institutional readiness, a common strategy culture, and the mechanism for rapid political decision-making. Defense ministers meeting within the Foreign Affairs Council too often produce the lowest common denominator of 27 positions, not a timely and unified response. So I think the proposal of the Martens Center focus correctly the point. We have more instruments than ever, but we still relied on fragmented formats, ad hoc coalition, and slow procedures, precisely when unity, speed, and political focus are required. I can highlight the strengths, in my view, of the proposal. First, I appreciated the institutional realism. The ESC would not be a new autonomous institution. It would sit within the European Council framework, chaired by its president, and this not require any treaty change. And this is politically decisive because you know that to change the treaties requires a unanimity among 27 member states, a condition that actually today is not simply out of reach. Second, the break of unanimity. Qualified majority is the single most important innovation. Sorry for that. Oh, no. Okay, okay. So I was talking about, adesso funziona anche questo, ce ne abbiamo troppi. Unanimity is the paralysis machine that for the European foreign and security policy. And any serious proposal must address this point, and the Martens Center does it. Third, the inclusive design. Unlike the 2019 proposal, with its permanent seats for 5 large countries, this version is open to 27 member states with the right to opt in or opt out, and avoiding the division into tier 1 and tier 2 countries is, in my view, a very positive update of the proposal, because it deserves the intra-European trust a lot. Fourth, the associate membership for United Kingdom, Norway, and Ukraine. This is one of the most valuable features. It offers a structured home for the post-Brexit security cooperation and the forum where discuss continental threat perception and topics that cannot be addressed in the NATO consensus. And I would like to underline also the weakness of the proposal, in my view. There are also 4. First, the legal force of the ESC decision is not clear. Qualified majority voting inside the ESC sounds very attractive, but what exactly would this decision bind? Under the treaties, the PESCO decision still requires unanimity, and Article 20 sets real procedural hurdles. Without clarity, the ESC risks being a club that votes, but implementation still depends on each capital and the ordinary EU machinery. The gap between deciding and delivering risks to be very big and dangerous. Second, the intergovernmental drift. The Commission, the Parliament, and the High Representative are given a non-voting seats in the proposal, but defense is no longer a purely intergovernmental affair. EDIP, SAFE, the European Competitiveness Fund, and the next MFF make it increasingly a budgetarian and industrial policy, where the European Parliament is co-legislator. A strategic directorate of executives with Parliament as witness would have a democratic accountability problem, in my view. I say this as a parliamentarian. Scrutiny is not an ornament. It is what sustains public consent for defense spending over time. Third, the duplication risk, because the ESC is meant to streamline the present patchwork of formats, but unless it visibly replaces some of them, it may simply add one table more. And fourth, the last, the missing legs, because governance without resources is very weak. And the ESC says little about the fiscal capacity and the common industrial policy that deterrence requires. We saw that with the Ukraine experience, how the war has been transformed with new military technology, drones, cyber satellites, AI, autonomous system. A strategic coordination that is not wired into industrial and technological policy and into common funding risks to remain a forum of words. In an overall consideration, I think the proposal is very positive. Indeed, the federal solution designed by Einaudi and Spinelli in 1952 for European defense is not achievable in the short term. An intermediate phase is inevitable, and in that phase, I think the European Security Council can be a valuable bridge, provided that we treat it as a getaway and not as a destination, provided it is anchored to the Union rather than in competition with it, provided it develops a parliamentary dimension, and provided it is connected to industrial and financial tools that turn decisions into capabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. We are getting towards the end of the session. I'm very keen that all of the panelists have a chance to speak. Peter, we will come back to you for a quick summary at the end of your reflections on the points. But is it Francesca?
Francesca.
Okay, that's a relief.
I'm Francesca Traldi from the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung. And first of all, let me thank the director, Professor Grillo, for his kind invitation and for giving the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation the opportunity to support the 7th edition of Siena Conference. It's a really pleasure to be here and support such a delighted event. And let me thank also Mr. Dr. Peter Hefele for being here and share the point of view of the Martens Center. While the paper addresses one of the most crucial questions for Europe now, how Europe... Così? Okay. How Europe can strengthen their capacity to provide their own security in a rapidly changing geopolitical environment. About the strength and the weakness point, we have already said, Mr. Gori has already mentioned, is a matter of method, which is very important. And the proposal calls us to adopt a different integration approach to the security and defense, to coordinate better response and build common position more rapidly. Having said that, I have also to stress that such a body would not replace NATO or the existing EU institution. The question today is not whether Europe should choose between NATO and Europe. The real question is how Europe can become stronger and more capable pillar within the transatlantic community. The transatlantic relation remain essential. NATO remain essential. But Europeans increasingly understand that they must be prepared to take greater responsibility for their own security. The different integration approach would reduce fragmentation and duplication of effort in the field of European security and defense. Furthermore, it would contribute to the development of a genuine European strategic culture in the civil society. Recent polling supported by the European Council of Foreign Relations across Europe show that citizens are also adapting to this new reality, and that today this new reality is not only visible among policymakers or experts. Europeans increasingly understand that they must be prepared to take greater responsibility for their own security right now. I will show the poll, but probably there is not time enough. I will send it later. According to ECF poll, there is now a growing alignment between strategic necessity and public opinion. The challenge is therefore no longer only about the resources. It's also about the governance. Europe must also improve its ability to think strategically, anticipate crises, and act collectively. And to do that, Europe needs the civil society and all the European citizens. For universities, think tanks, and research institutions, this represents an important mission because this debate on European defense, therefore, cannot remain confined to military circles. Strategic autonomy is not only about weapon, budget, or procurement. It's also about idea, knowledge, leadership, and democratic legitimacy. That's why we decided to discuss this paper right here. What a perfect place. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Online, Vincenzo De Luca has been waiting very patiently. Vincenzo, you're a diplomat. So much of what we've been listening to concerns diplomacy. This week alone has seen the collapse of a pan-European defense project. What are your thoughts on trying to forge a pan-European security collective and agreement in this manner?
Thank you very much, Peter. You hear me?
Yes, very well.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to focus my contribution on how we can move on the European defense industry integration in parallel with the European defense system. taking into account that, of course, we are talking about European defense with the maintaining the Atlantic Alliance and NATO, but reinforcing European capacity in this frame. So I think it's now time to move from words to action, adopting pragmatism as an approach, and also a progressive integration of the industry and technology. And on this point of view, I share some of the comments, previous comments on the importance to consider defense industry and defense system in Europe fully integrated with the European industrial policy. There are at least three elements that are essential in enhancing defense industry capacity that are related to the industrial policy, and also with the discussion we had in the previous session on digitalization and energy. First of all, AI dual application, critical materials, and also the provision of critical materials for European industry, and energy security. These are three pillars that are essential both for industrial policy as well as for industrial defense industry integration. And of course, for a European defense, we should enhance the European foreign policy and be able to promote a consistent framework of foreign policy in order to support the defense model. And also with the view of European way, let's say, in approaching the concept and definition of defense. Having said that, there is another point that is very sensitive for the European public opinion. We will spend more, but we will be more efficient. So today, European Union spends around 380 billion euro on armaments, the same as China, which spends 370 according to last data. But we spend them in a fragmented way and with duplication overlaps of spending. That's why we need a more integrated budget on defense and a clear indication of buying European. Being aware of this framework, we must recognize the importance of a gradual and differentiated approach, identifying strengthened cooperation methodology as an initial pragmatic core of the defense system. Our Hungarian colleagues mentioned the E5 format, which currently coordinates the defense ministry of 5 European countries: Italy, France, Germany, Poland, and UK. Of course, today we should consider if we want to move in a pragmatic but progressive and fast way, we should integrate this E5 with other two relevant players like Sweden and Spain, in my view. And also we have to consider in the integration of the European industry, the undergoing profound transformation. Today, multi-domain operation, integrated land, sea, air, space, innovation coming from development drones, and cyber dimension require a more ambitious level of integration. In this context, the creation of new European platform is essential in 3 key areas: air defense, satellite, and electronic integration of defense systems. New alliances are emerging in the European industry landscape. Among the most significant is the cooperation between Italy and France, the new industrial partnership in the space sector between Leonardo, Airbus, and Thales, which aims to create a new European satellite system company under joint control, Project Bromo. Other ongoing initiatives include the Franco-German merger KNDS, Nexter KMW, which develops a joint project related to tanks, artillery, ammunition, and armored vehicles, as well as MBDA, the main European consortium building missile and defense technology in the sector of aeronautics, navy, and land armed force, owned by 20% by Italy, 37.5% by UK, 37.5% by France. Defense industrial policy isn't about kind of militarization. It's about capacity of resilience. And this is another point is important also for public opinion in Europe. Without integrated capacity, without scale, interoperability, and integrated governance, increased budget won't translate into more efficient and resilient European defense system and the enhancement of strategic autonomy of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vincenzo. And that leads in very nicely to Massimo Comparrini, who joins us in extra time. But Massimo, for you, we'll go to penalties. So if you could quickly sum up your feelings from the perspective of industry on what joint European defense procurement could look like under this kind of European Security Council model.
Thank you, and I hope that you can hear me rather well.
We can hear you.
Okay, I apologize. Unfortunately, delay in my plane didn't allow to be connected since the beginning. But I followed the last 15 minutes, and let me connect to the last talk. Of course, I will give an highlight or snapshot on one of the technologies that has been mentioned, which is the space technologies, to contribute to security at large and, of course, European security. I think that commenting the report of the centers, where, of course, the readiness in the security, in how to react fast to threats, it's an element of efficiency and also effectiveness of our capabilities. The technology base is very important. And in this respect, I agree on the fact that Europe in the last 20 years has done quite remarkable steps, in the sense that we have a range of technologies that can support what is the challenge. At the same time, it's a fact that if at global level, the investment, the amount of resources is not far, maybe lower with respect to US, but it's not far from that critical mass. It's true that we still have a level of fragmentation that we need to work on. Or fragmentation in some, let's say, decision body, as well as from the industrial sector, where we need to find a point of balance between the national sovereignty and European sovereignty. And I'm particularly glad that there has been mentioned one attempt, or more than one attempt, what, as Leonardo, we follow and we do on the possibility of a consolidation on the satellite and services, so on the space industry. The project Broma has been mentioned. I'm back in Italy from Spain exactly because I had a touch base with the Spanish government, and we really think from an industrial perspective that this level of consolidation from our point of view may be a response to find that point of balance, to find a point of balance between a global view in the R&D expenses and the product development, taking care, of course, of the national budget, taking care of the objective of the national stakeholder and the single member state, but at the same time, having a European perspective. I think that this is extremely important in the coming few years, also looking to the MFF 28-35, so the next cycle of funding that for sure will see Europe boosting the level of funding of those kind of technologies. We need to act fast. I mean, the evolution of some situation is such that it's not just, we cannot just be sufficient to be technology ready. We need to be technology ready. We need to be able to provide capabilities to our national and European stakeholders. And I think that this is the challenge that we have. A challenge where we have also a combination of technology domains, space and AI. The convergence between space technologies and digital technologies is extremely important at the end to give the information superiority for our defense, as well as, let's say, for a full awareness of the domain that we are talking about. Let me comment a very last point on the fact that in terms of the contribution of the space technologies to this global security, we see really today a general awareness how this is important. Connectivity, geospatial domain, navigation and positioning, all those topics are well addressed in the European space strategy, are well addressed in the European defense strategy. And so the challenge is really to work to make them available in this European perspective, not sacrificing the national angle and the national sovereignty.
Thank you so much, Massimo. Thank you. Peter, I wonder if we can come back to you for concluding remarks, a broad range of views, thoughts from some very diverse sectors there. So yeah, if you can wrap that up, that would be much appreciated.
Shall we take that?
Okay, yeah, we'll take one quick question.
Thank you for the interesting proposal. Like your views on a couple of issues. The first one, it's very important. The proposal is about an EU tool open to third countries, rather than a tool with third countries outside of the EU, which cannot be communitarized, which is another proposal on the table. So I think it's very important if the European Parties Foundation can focus on EU tool open to third countries. On the balance between national and European sovereignty, do you think that the joint undertakings can be the instrument to find that balance in trying to get the strategic enablers that we lack? Because joint undertakings are a mixture between public and private, the EU and member states. So there is this kind of balance, and maybe this can be the tool that is available already in the treaty to try to go in that direction. And the third issue is about, you spoke about transatlantic alliance and NATO. Trump asked Europeans to take over NATO. We should answer positively and strengthen the Berlin Plus agreement to let the EU be able to use SHAPE. SHAPE is the only command and control center that can coordinate the national military now. If we have this agreement, then we can use PESCO to create an EU multinational force with like the one decided in 1999 Helsinki Council of 60,000 strong. We could use PESCO also to communitarize.
Question.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. Very briefly, thanks for chairing, and thanks to the panelists for the insights. My name is Jean-Pierre. I'm from execution. I think it was Vincenzo who said we need to start acting. I totally agree. A lot of money has become available, but we need a strategy and a roadmap. And I would suggest an envoy for Europe to draft these two pieces of these two documents. in close consultation with member states, and it has to be done rapidly before the end of the year. As von Clausewitz said, if you want peace, you need to prepare for war. And really, it's 2 to midnight because we are being undermined by Russia and China, and the US has been distancing itself from us. Your views, please.
I think we're 10 minutes over time, so I think we're going to have to just close the
very quickly. Regarding the comprehensive strategy, I think the real question should be about the real things we need to protect. Because if we have 27 national strategy, we are not focusing on the real need, first thing. Second thing, let's speak clearly, as early as 2020, there are discussions within the presidency of the US about the fact that the US will leave NATO by 2030, and this was under Biden. At a certain moment, we need to have a transition plan, whatever, and there are several former US generals who are ready to help us, and they did it in media, they explained to us. So at a certain moment, we need to look at the reality and to stop evading. And third thing, regarding the industry of defense, there are two things. On the one side, Gentiloni said clearly that there is a risk regarding the German strategy. Everybody is aware we need to pause this discussion because otherwise we go nowhere. And regarding the UK, in fact, the deal is very clear. We need courage with regard to the UK. They need to say we want to go in safe and we pay or not. And second, there is a certain number of agreements with the US which are contrary to the European security. And we need to put this question on the table. And last thing, we need to leverage the real potential of our partner. And the most advanced of our partner are the Ukrainian, the South Korean, and the Taiwanese, not at all the US, and stop buying material that the US don't want for themselves, but want for them because we are recycling for obsolete supply chain.
Well, let me start with thanking Stephen, marvelous moderation, dear colleagues here on the panel, as well as the contributions here in the hall. Certain issues, and Giorgio, I will start a bit with your very well-structured points. The political purpose of this proposal was that we have a lot of initiatives already out there, but the political umbrella, if I may say so, is lacking because this is that kind of strategic culture we have not fully developed. We have a lot of pieces, the colleague here from the Netherlands pointed out, we have a lot of pieces from European focus to the Indo-Pacific, but there's a lack in a clear strategic coherence, and institutions definitely matter because they could be the place to trigger these discussions. I think our both political camps are fully agreeing that the European Parliament has definitely become much more powerful, a real parliament with an initiative, right? I don't touch into the problem whether we should unite the Commission's president with the Council's president. You know, there are a lot of other constitutional proposals right out there. All they're right, but we cannot wait. And the last thing we can wait is a change in the treaties. We might sit together in 15 years. Maybe then we are ripe to do that. So we propose and push again very concrete proposals because the time is, and as it has several times been mentioned, the thing which definitely matters. We can neither touch, and Francesca, we had discussed, I think, last year, the resource issue, which is always a topic in European issues, and we are right in the center of the multi-annual framework. This opens a wider field, but again, it's not a lack of resources. It's an issue of strategic thinking. It's bringing things together and also communicating, because this is often an elite discussion. You as a member of the parliament, you are confronted in your constituency about these existential questions, and we all know how the debate in different countries is. So we have to make it visible. We have to make a clear vision which we can communicate, and don't make it too complicated. Things get anyway in reality more than complicated. So, and a last word, our proposal is open. We have not the idea in closing Europe and shrinking it, making it even more smaller.
And that's the end of the session. So thank you very much to all of the panelists and to contributions from the floor. And it's a great discussion, and I'm sure it will continue into the evening. Thank you.
Now outside we have the coffee break outside here, so we can enjoy the break. And then at 5:30, we have the shuttle for the concert for who want to join